What's up? I'm Brylan.
I'm Lisa.
Today we want to talk about keeping the love alive in your marriage. You know, that love that we feel, we get all giddy when we start dating, we fall in love for the first time, and we just know that this is the person we're going to be with for the rest of our lives. That feeling goes away.
Yes. And speaking from experience, we've been married for...
That feeling goes away. Well, speaking from experience.
I don't mean it like that. We've been married for almost 7 years. Now, that's nothing compared to many other people, but we do have some experience we can speak on and hopefully shed some light and give some tips for those of you that are married or are entering into marriage and want to know how you can keep the love alive or reignite it.
Woo!
But first, if you haven't hit the subscribe button, make sure to hit it.
And hit the little bell to be notified when we post our new videos.
We post videos to encourage you to know God's Word.
And to deepen your relationship with Jesus. If you've fallen in love before, then you know that it is one of the most exhilarating feelings you could ever feel.
Like Disneyland.
Well, yeah. There's always a starting point to love that obviously begins with feelings towards someone that you find attractive, whether physically or mentally, mostly physically.
God!
There's nothing that can redirect the course of your life faster than falling in love. It doesn't take much for the person you are in love with to convince you of absolutely anything, whether convincing you of something beneficial or something that's not in your best interest. It all sounds right when it comes from the lips of the one you have just fallen in love with. Research shows that there is a chemical reaction in our brains that occurs when we begin to feel in love with someone. While a lot of it is psychological, there is no doubt that there is a chemical-driven aspect of love that rushes through our body. Love surges the neurotransmitter dopamine in our brains, which in turn signals that we are experiencing something beneficial and rewarding.
It can almost be addicting.
Love is a drug. Don't do love, kids.
So it's really fascinating to look at how love works, especially what you were just talking about in the chemical reaction. When we fall in love, the first couple of years are effortless, at least they seem like they're effortless. Our hearts completely take over for our brains and begin to think and act for us. The giddy, tingly feeling isn't just in our heads. It's that surge of chemical reaction Bri mentioned. We spend every waking moment thinking about that person, and if we aren't awake, we're dreaming of them. We would climb a skyscraper and move a mountain for the person we love. We would drive 1,000 miles in the dead of summer with a broken AC system just to be with the one we love. And
ain't that the truth?
Yeah, and when we got there, we would say the drive was just fine. Because no matter the heat, the sweat, the pain, it was all done for love.
Love works like that.
Yeah, it
There's
really
so many
does.
things that I wouldn't do for you today that I did for you.
What? Oh my gosh. That's not what this video is about. Once again, our brains switch our point of view from seeing the negative in every moment to realizing the positive in the outcome. We just see through eyes of love, which is pleasing the one you love. Have you ever thought that you were completely in control of the direction of your life? Apparently, you have never experienced falling in love.
True.
Research shows that this state of being in love will slowly degrade and almost entirely vanish within 3 years.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So it doesn't last forever?
No, it doesn't.
Oh.
So that leaves the rest of your life, your marriage, to continue trying to love someone without the adrenaline rush and the chemical reaction that we talked about earlier. That's not to say that you will never feel this way or have those giddy, lovey feelings for your husband or wife again, but love takes on a different form, and it begins to take effort and work to not only survive, but thrive, which is really what we want in our marriage.
Absolutely. You know, after a while, love can seem almost to fade into something that seems foreign. Where once it felt like your love was invincible and you could You couldn't wait to spend a lifetime going above and beyond to please your husband or wife. It starts to become something that seems like it takes so much effort that you start to question if it's even worth it. You've been there. No, I'm kidding. When at one point we would do anything at any time for our love, bitterness starts to creep in and say, why can't you do this yourself? Or seriously, I have to drive all the way across town for you? Suddenly, that 1,000 miles you once drove just to see him or see her turns into like a 2-mile radius. Anything beyond that 2-mile radius starts to feel like 1,000 miles again, because we have to work for that love now. It doesn't come so easy anymore. Yeah. And where before you would say we would never fight or argue about anything, suddenly turns into we never do anything without fighting and arguing.
What are you trying to say?
I'm not going to do this again. We're trying to film a video. Can we please not argue? There are things that Lisa and I used to do for and with one another without hesitating one bit. Remember those days?
Yeah.
Honestly, they could almost start to become a chore over time as the first few years in our marriage passed.
Yeah.
I don't want this to sound like, well, you'll have a few good years of bliss. Better enjoy them while you can. Because even though Lisa and I have only been married almost 7 years, like we said before, I do not believe that we have to live a life together in a way that makes us desperate to cultivate and nourish our love together. Yeah. Lisa and I are still young. I'm not saying we have it all figured out by any means, but I do know that I would rather admit that love is tougher now than when we first met, and work on implementing things that cause our love to thrive and not just survive or barely survive. There are numerous resources out at our fingertips at any given moment, with our phones and computers and books, but oftentimes it can be overwhelming to try and find the right things to do in a sea of advice. So we want to give some practical advice that maybe can help you start implementing these, some beneficial things today.
Yeah, and these are things that, whether you're not married at all and you're looking to be married, these are things to keep in mind. If you are married, I just want to encourage you and say it is never too late to start implementing these things. One thing you've said before, and I think is so true, God is in the business of restoring. So if you feel like your marriage and your love is completely dead, we might not know your exact situation, but God can heal and restore, and he can bring back that love into your marriage.
Absolutely.
So tip number 1 is to read and learn together. There are numerous books that we can read that promise to hold the secret, the one thing to a happy marriage. However, 99% of those are fluff, honestly, and just filled with feel-good advice that doesn't really help to work at the issue, the core of the issue, and doesn't last over time. They don't help you to learn and implement the right things that can help you be the best you can be for your spouse's needs and to really work on your marriage. One of the most powerful books we can recommend is The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman.
Such a good book.
Yeah, this is a really good book. I'm just going to read the summary for you guys so you guys can get an idea of what it's about. Between busy schedules and long days, expressing love can fall by the wayside. We forget to compliment, to give gifts just because, to linger in our embrace. The things that say, I love you, seem to either not get said or not get through. This is a book about saying it and hearing it clearly. No gimmicks, no psychoanalyzing, just learning to express love in your spouse's language.
We're going to leave a link for it down below, so go check it out. You can read about it and research the book. Get the book and just read it, really.
Yeah.
Because it is absolutely fascinating and has really helped us.
Yeah, and honestly, the tips in it, like the whole idea of it is actually very simple, so it's easy for anybody to start implementing, but it really does make a big difference in expressing love to your spouse and creating those lovey feelings again, too. Yeah. This is honestly one of the best books Brylan and I read when we were dating and when we were first getting married, and we actually just started reading it again recently, kind of like we retook there's a test that goes along with it. Right, it might sound weird, but the insight in this book is spot on, and it did wonders in helping us not only understand each other's specific needs for love, but also help us understand our own needs and how we need to be loved and how we actually feel loved as individuals.
One thing this book did was it doesn't just give your spouse or the person you're dating, it doesn't just give them an idea of how to love you. It gives you an idea of how you need to be loved too, because there are certain things where it's like, I didn't realize like that's the type of love that I need. It's like as you read through the 5 love languages, you start to see, even for yourself, wow, that's me. Yeah. I need that kind of love.
Mm-hmm. And there's actually other 5 love language books for men, teenagers, children, and even singles. So again, we'll have all those linked below for whatever needs.
I would say that tip number 2 would be to serve your marriage. Jesus was the ultimate servant, and we see in scripture, specifically, verses like Matthew 20:28, Jesus said that he came to serve and not be served. If we can implement this mindset, not only in our walk with God, but also in our marriage, then I believe we could see, a life-changing benefits. Yeah. We should be intentional and looking for ways to really just serve our marriage, lighten the load for our spouse. Yeah. And no matter which way that looks like in your dating or in your marriage, then look for ways that you can serve your spouse and put them before and above yourself.
And sometimes this means acting before actually feeling it. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, we should be asking the Lord to change our hearts and our mindset for wanting to serve our spouse, even when we don't feel like it.
Absolutely.
And that can definitely come. There's a joy that can follow that and a peace that can follow that.
Yeah, we're naturally more inclined, just because of our sinful nature, to want to put ourselves first, to want to be selfish, really. It's just the sinful way of things. But we are actually created to not be selfish. We are created to serve. We're created to be like Jesus, and that's serve. And so, in a perfect world, we would serve each other without hesitation. We wouldn't even think about putting ourselves first. Yeah. So if in this life we can learn just even a tiny bit of how to do that and implement that into our marriage, I think spiritually we'd be so much more satisfied, and just more satisfied in our marriage and with our spouse, really. Yeah.
And serving your spouse kind of seems to have this magical effect. When you serve your spouse, they want to do things for you too. And it's like kind of like this like back and forth thing. And sometimes it's not always going to be back and forth. Sometimes you're going to feel like you're the one that's serving more in certain times, and then vice versa. But continue to do that. Ask God to change your heart in that. And that really does create those love feelings we talked about.
And if you're thinking, I'm way too selfish for that, then think of it this way. Be selfish with serving, knowing that you're going to get served back.
Oh.
Am I right?
Tip number 3, I actually love this one. Reminisce together. Yeah. Or by yourself too. Honestly, you can do this.
Totally.
Look back at the special times when you first fell in love and were dating, when you first got married. Look at pictures. Just remember what you were feeling during those times and what really attracted you to your spouse at first, why you fell in love, the things that, the attributes that they have that you really love about them, smells that take you back to a certain time, eat food that reminds you of those times. Really reminiscing and bringing up those feelings that you had when you first fell in love can just remind you of why you fell in love and, again, what you love about that person.
When you look at like those pictures together and stuff, think about what you were doing, just before, and just after, maybe make it a game. Like,
oh yeah, like just talk about memories.
like look at this moment of us like sitting by a tree stump in the park.
No, like actually,
whatever you're doing.
That reminds me of a time we took these pictures at Elk Grove Park. And I have those pictures, and I always just remember like sitting there together talking, and it was just like really special.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
And then play like a game or something together. Like see who can remember exactly what you were doing before and what you were doing right after those pictures. Like reenact that scene together in your minds, and like oh, that's right, we were just doing this, or that was when we did that.
Yeah.
I mean, that can re-spark that love faster than a honky tonk. I don't know.
Always remember that there was a love that was so strong that you dedicated your life to this one person. You guys decided you were going to live the rest of your lives together and savor those moments. I know when we do this, literally those giddy, lovey feelings come back, and I just kind of feel revived in our marriage.
Absolutely.
When we do that.
Yeah. This might sound kind of weird, but tip number 4 is going to be a marriage reboot at least once a year. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
So basically what this means is start over. Restart your marriage. Introduce yourselves again like it's the first time you're meeting.
Yeah.
And, go on a first date again. Go buy a new dress and, or go buy a new dress shirt. Get ready like, you would if you were going on a first date again. Maybe even brag to your friends that you have this like hot date tonight and it's the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. The whole point is to just really restart things. Go back to square one when you first felt, when you were first falling in love.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, reintroduce yourselves. Literally, if you have kids, it might be a little more difficult to do this, but maybe one of you like gets up in the morning and like leaves the house, and maybe you go and you just spend maybe like a couple hours apart, and then call your husband or wife and just say, hey, do you want to go on a date tonight? And act like you're going to pick them up at their house.
That's
and
so
it's like,
cute.
I mean, this might sound silly and stupid, but it really does. There's something about it that can really spark just that ability to just recharge your love again and put you back in the mindset of why and when and how you fell in love with your spouse.
And the thing with marriage too is over time, I'm not, like, for me, like, I'm not the exact same person I was when we first started dating and got married. For sure. And same with Bri. He's not the same person.
Not at all.
Now we have similar things in common with the people we were, and there are things that are the same. We have changed because we've been through different experiences together. So it's kind of like re-meeting your spouse for who they are now and loving them as they are now, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can almost like re-meet each other again.
Yeah.
From the as you continue to change and you continue to re-meet each other, then you begin to like get to know each other for who you have become.
And being completely open and honest, this is one thing we're actually working on right now. And we're doing in our marriage.
It's up to you to implement what you learn and put the effort in that will reinvigorate your love to last the rest of your lives. What ways have you found to be better, to better your own marriage? Share that with us in the comments below. Let us know if there's anything that you've done recently or have done in the past or that have really benefited your marriage. Start that discussion in the comments, because what we said isn't a definitive list.
No.
There's so much more to it.
Yeah.
And, maybe you'll have something that you can share that can really, spark in someone else to go, wow, that's what I needed.
Yeah. Or if you have any marriage testimonies below about, how you just reignited the love in your marriage or how your marriage turned around, we would love to hear that too.
Absolutely.
You can encourage each other in the comments with all our tips and testimonies. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already.
And make sure to hit the bell so you can be notified when we post our videos. Hey, we will see you guys in the comment section. Later.
Bye.